The big one, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the original little magical square box that literally saved the video game industry. I want to talk about it. I want to talk about my personal stories with it, personal favorite games that I like, and everything else in between. I defy anybody to find anybody who was not a fan of the Nintendo Entertainment System. Anybody who actually legitimately said when it came out, I didn't like this system. You're not gonna find no one who says that. There's controversy over all new video game systems all the time, but the one definitive thing that can bring us all together is everybody loves the NES. Look at how popular the classic NES Mini was when it came out. I couldn't even get my hands on it, damn you scalpers, but still, lots of people bought it. It was massive hit right away. Like, so was the Super Nintendo one, but we saved that for another video, right? The NES Classic, I remember when I got my very first one, we were just playing Ataris, ColecoVisions, like there was nothing like this at the time. And then there was that dead zone where we had the crash of the 1980s. And so we had nothing, I had nothing. And when my cousins had it for the very first time and I saw it, literally brains were blown how good this thing was. It was light years ahead of the pixely one screen monotone, barely any sound effects, no music type of garbage that we were playing before. No disrespect to, the Atari and ColecoVision, but come on. When you played Super Mario Brothers for the very first time, or you played Kung Fu or any of the other early titles, like that was it. Now, my cousins were hogs for the system. There were 5 of them, okay? So imagine that. I'm pretty much the youngest. The controller was never passed to me. It was always them. They were the greediest kids I ever saw with this system. I could always just sit back and watch, and even if I managed to get one try with it, hey, I've been working with joysticks my whole life. I don't know this thumb pad thing. It was completely foreign to me. I pick it up, they give me the controller, oh, okay, here, play. I'm playing Kung Fu or Super Mario. I would just die on the Goomba right away. I didn't understand how to play it. And then all of a sudden they would just like, oh, okay, you're dead. And they would take the controller away from me right away. So when I went to my dad, God bless him, and said, you know what? My aunt and my cousins aren't really using the Nintendo anymore. They kind of just, I don't know what you want to say, they OD'd on it, right? And it was just sitting there not doing anything. So I was asking, Dad, can we go over and can I just borrow the system? I'll ask my aunt if I can just borrow the system. Of course she's going to say yes, just for like a couple days to let me play. And my dad just goes, well, why would you want to borrow one when I could just buy you one? And I'm just like, huh? Just like that. It wasn't my birthday. It wasn't Christmas. It wasn't anything. He just, and we're not rich people or by any means. That's why it kind of blew my mind. He would just be like, let's just go down and buy you one. I was just like, wow. For no reason whatsoever other than just being a good father who wanted to please his son. I can't believe it. And I wasn't a spoiled kid either. So I was excited. I was busting. I was exploding. And so we went down to the mall and I got one of those entertainment system collections that just came with the controllers in the system and Super Mario Brothers. That's it. No Zapper Gun, no Duck Hunt, no Rob the Robot, nothing. It was one of those slimmed down basic systems at this time. Brought it home, ripped it all open, hooked it up as quickly as I can, and just started binging Super Mario Brothers. It was the only game that I had, and it was the only game I really cared about at the time. I started mastering the controller because you got to remember that everything was right-handed at the time because we had all been used to the controllers where the actual action buttons were on the left hand and what you controlled with, whether it be, a joystick or whatever, was always with your right hand. So you had left hand, right hand. And so when you had the controller, the NES controller for the very first time, it was backwards. So you had to switch it. Now you had to think, well, this is my fire button now, not this anymore. This is my movement. So I just played and played just so I could master the thumb pad. Now, after I had mastered Super Mario Brothers, we had to get some new games, but guess what? They were like $100 and over $100 here in Canada. It was obscene pricing. But what they did have was we had, before Blockbuster, mom and pop rental stores that could rent you videos. Well, guess what? They started renting video games. Yes, and I went there and there was a wall of Nintendo games, and my mother at the time said you can pick like 2 games. You know, you still couldn't pick like the whole library if you wanted to. It was about, I can't remember what it was about like $8, and you only got it for like about 2 days, and then there was a ton of late charges tacked onto it. So I looked through all of the games, and what did I see? I saw Ninja Gaiden, okay, and I saw Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah, you're seeing a theme here, I get it, but these were one of the very first games that I ever played for the NES system. So, Ninja Gaiden, I looked at the back and I go, well, there you go again. Just like I was talking about Rygar before, it didn't really look like the arcade, but it was one of those Nintendo games, again, where Nintendo made it better than the arcade. I took it home, I played it, and it wound up being one of the most frustrating, hated, just to the core of it, video games that I ever played. It was way too hard for me. It was way too hard. I mean, people even do speed runs of the game today because it's notoriously challenging. But still, back then, when it was like one of the very first NES games you ever played, it was just brutal. I couldn't even pass the snowy stage. I could not pass that boss for the life of me. I was clueless, and there was no internet to help me. I didn't have Nintendo Power at the time. I was just screwed. So I felt extremely disappointed. I was very upset about it, almost crying over it, because, you know, this is the only games that I could get for like the longest time, and I can make it nowhere in them. Then I plugged in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and guess what? Same thing. Brutally hard. I didn't get it. It was just way too difficult even to understand. I had to, pause the game. I had to switch turtles. And then, of course, you make it to the damn part. And then that's it. Game over. You're not going to pass that as a kid at all. I was like, this is way too hard. You're fighting against the timer. You're fighting against the zappers. You're fighting against the seaweed. You're fighting against everything. All the odds against you. It was 2 of the worst games I could have ever picked as beginner games for an NES novice, but they still have special places in my heart, and that's why I think that I remade a few of them, because these are the classic ones that I first played for the actual system. It was also weird things about the system as well. You might notice they never ever make that where you plug in a game in this way and you kind of push it down. It was always a flawed system. They came out with a new one later on where you finally just plug the game into the top of it. I think they call it the dog bone version because the controller kind of looks like a dog bone, but that was just too late at the time. That came out way later, and it's actually a very rare system. But it was interesting that all the other games were top loaders at the time, but Nintendo decided to come out with this quirky thing. It had like a drawer on it, or it had like a latch thing that would always break on the top of it, that cover, and it was just notoriously glitchy. They even came out with things you could plug into the NES that would actually clean it. They had these weird cleaner things on it. It didn't even work that good. So that's it. Those are my personal stories for when I first had my Nintendo Entertainment System, right after pretty much coming off of like Atari 2600 and the other systems at the time that were similar. It's absolutely fantastic. It saved the industry. It brought the industry back from the brink of destruction. So always has a special place in my heart, and I think anybody who plays any games, even if you're not a gamer, I think that the NES will always have a special place in everybody's heart, right? So if you want to see content like this again, or you want to see another video like this on another great retro system, or maybe not so great, it's your opinion, click up here in the corner, and you can also see me get eaten by a shark.